Welcome everybody to Red G Fox. And today we are here at the end of season 1. What a great, we started this July, the first week of July, and here we are entering October just to get to the end of half of what a season is, 14 episodes. And we are at one of the best, probably my favorite, Coffins for Sale, and this go hand in hand, and that is the Piano Movers. My goodness, it's just nonstop hysterical. There's so much. We usually have a top 5 funny, and it's got to be top 15. I'll still say top 5. I might not even say it. It's just nonstop. It's one of the best episodes ever. And there's only like 3 characters. I know you got that sheriff, the police officer, who comes. But let's get right to it. It opens up, and this is one of the few times in show history where it opens up on real life. It's not on a set. They're outside, and Lamont's truck is there, and he's got a note. So he's like, it's a huge, beautiful penthouse. He's got this nice building, and Lamont goes in there, and he goes to the door, and the guy comes in, and he's like, hey, you sure you want me? And he's like, yeah, look, I just want this piano out of here. And before Lamont can go to watch it, he's like, And that's something that's so funny with this guy. He's like, and he goes, no, you got to change shoes. He said, I can't have you walking on my rug. So he gives him the shoes, and before Lamont can sit down, he's like, that's a Chippendale, and you can't sit down there. And then he goes to lean on the wall, and he's like, So we get this great idea, great setup of this character who's very fancy. You see the whole room. It's very nice stuff. So he's high class, and he's very foreign, right, we might say. And Fred has many different other words for him. But they go, and he checks the piano, and Lamont's like, when he looks at it, Lamont's thinking, like a lot of us, like, I'm not going to pay a lot of money for this because I'm not going to get as much as you would in my store. People aren't coming to buy pianos. They're looking for smaller and cheaper junk items, right? But he goes, when he finds out that the guy's like, no, I just want it out of here, right? And you can have it, right? That's your reward. You can take it. Lamont's like, and he's a smart businessman. He's like, no, I need money. He said, all right, $10, $15. And he's like, no, I can't split $15. And of course you can, but he's thinking as an even $5, $10. He gets them all the way to 20. He's like, okay, I'm going to go get my partner. Gives them, and then it's so funny, Lamont gives the shoes. He almost left with them. That'll come into play later, but he puts the shoes back in. Then it returns, and as soon as Fred gets off the elevator, if you know the episode, you're already smiling because you know this is where the fun begins. And it is so true. As he comes in, he's like, I don't want to move no piano. Fred's already complaining. And he's like, mild injury from the war, serving in World War II. And Lamont, and he's like, remember, he's like, I was staggered under a pack. And then Lamont's like, man, you never left Fort Dix, New Jersey. And this is top 5 funnies. The only pack that ever staggered you was a 6-pack. And then Fred's like, all right, I'll do it. He said, I don't want to. It'll hurt my back, but I'll do it. And I love when Fred does this throughout the series history. I'll do it. I don't want to, but I'll do it. It'll hurt my back, and I don't want to do it, but I'll do it. So he gets to it. They go to the door. And the guy opens the door, and they come in. And when they walk in, he's like, okay. He's like, this is my partner. Hello. And then he looks, and he's like, you look kind of old. The guy's like, you look kind of old for. And I wish they would have gave his first name. They never do. They do. We do get his wife's last name, or his first name. But as they get it, he's like, you look a little older. You can do it. And he's like, oh, Lamont's like, I'll do most of the heavy lifting. Don't worry. He'll be able to handle it. And Fred's like, you know what? Yeah, I'm not what I used to be. My body from being over in the war. And he's talking about how, the injury to my back and stuff. And then he starts doing, he's mumbling something in German. And Fred's like, you know what? I was just telling him that all day. Like Fred knows. And then when he finds out it's his dad, right? When he finds out his dad, he's like, what? You brought your father? And he's like, shouldn't he be retired? It's none of my business, but shouldn't he be retired, not doing this work? He said, Lamont, rightly so, is like, look, I'm doing the heavy lifting. And he's like, he's kind of upset. You can see that he's mad at Lamont. Like, your father should be retired. Why are you making... So it's already 1 strike against Lamont just at this scene. And then Fred says that. He's like, and he fakes the heart attack. And he's like, I'm not going to be around much longer. He said, it's Sanford and Son now, but pretty soon it'll be Dummy Incorporated. And Lamont is so pissed. And he's like, what do you mean Dummy Incorporated? He gets all heated and he starts going. And then the guy's, wait a minute. And he shouts and he stops. He's like, there will be no scenes here. Can you do this or not? And they're like, yeah, we can do it. And then he's like, when they're about to walk. And he's like, and then I love another top 5 funny when he goes to Fred and he's like, what's some of these I can't even get out because I've seen it, right? It's playing in your brain like the TV screen and it always kills me. And he's like, what size shoe do you wear? And then Fred gives it. He's like, what kind of question? Can you imagine being that? I work in a job to where I do go to people's homes to check appliances and stuff. And when I go there, I've never had anyone say, what size shoe do you wear? They might have booty covers or something, shoe covers. And Fred looks at him. He's like, size 10. Why? What are we going to do? Dance? Such a great line. And he's like, and then Lamont tells him, no, we can't be walking on his rug. And he's like, let me go get him. He gives Lamont the pair earlier that are, yellow, a little strange, but they're better looking than what he gives Fred. He gives them when they got the little curl. And it looks like it's some kind of shoe over in India. And that's when he goes, who wore these last? The thief of Baghdad. So it was the whole scene to get the shoes is great. Fred goes to put them on. He's like, when he goes to town, he's like, And he's like, that's a Chippendale. You wouldn't want to sit on there. And that's when Fred's like, you ought to get yourself a Sears Roebuck. Those are meant for sitting. And he's not getting the whole concept of what the guy means. That it's, it's a decent chair, but he does, especially with Fred and Lamont, dirty clothes, and he doesn't know where they've been. He probably would sit on them. Then he won't let him touch the wallpaper. French wallpaper. So Lamont already knows it. And Fred's like, yeah, where do you find these people? How do you get a hold of these people where we're at? And so he gets him as he leaves. That's when Fred's like, and this is classic. He looks at Lamont. He's like, you know what? I think he's a fruitcake, and it's a funny part. And we know what he means. And then he's all, or just a plain fruit. And he tells him, he's like, what? Why is he here in the middle of the day with that goofy robe on? and my youngest son's watching it with me even, and he said, what's that thing around his neck? Why has he got a scarf on him? Oh, that's an ascot, right? And remember Grady when he wears Lamont's ascot later, but that's later on. But I love that. But he's like, and I was telling him what it was, and he's like, why is he dressed like that sitting at home? So Fred's right, just common people, just even a kid watching is like, why is he dressed? And I'm like, hey, he's a fancy guy, and that's the way he likes to wear it. But he's saying, why is he there? Where's his wife? And he's like, him and his wife are separated. He's all, and you know why? And then he's like, I don't get this, but he's like, look at his shoulders. It's in the way look at his shoulders. And then the guy comes back and he has the chair, and as he sets it down, Fred's all, see? And the guy's all, what? See what? And he's like, oh, nothing. So he sits down, and it's so good the way he's sitting down to put the shoes on, and then he puts his hand on his shoulder. He's like, do you need any help? And he's just being a kind man, right? And Fred looks at it, and he's got that face like this, and he's all, no, I'm okay. I don't need any help, I'm good. And then that's when he goes, okay, well, if you need anything, let me know. And he goes to leave, and Fred's all, hey, wait. He said, is your wife gonna be here today? And he's like, no, she and I are done. And then he said, wait, what happened between you and your wife? He's all, that is none of your business. He said, we both separated, and now we have a whole new way of life. And that's when Fred's like, hold it, stop. And Lamont's trying to stop him. And then the way Fred's face is when he says it, he said, I want to know about that whole new, the whole new way of life. And the guy's face is all, and then Lamont already apologized for him. He's like, my dad has a tendency to, so he takes off, and now they get up and they start walking over there. And Lamont's like, let's just get to the piano. So Fred takes a few steps, and he goes to the piano, and then he goes to the desk, and he finds a checkbook, and he looks at her name, and he says her name, and the name, I didn't get the last name, but the first name is, where is it? I'm saving that because they actually say her name, right? We know her name, but we don't know his, which like I said, I wish I didn't. I'll save her name for fun fact at the end. And so he looks at it, and then he sees the next name, and it was for $100, and he goes to Dwayne, and then he looks at the money. He's like, I bet we know who Dwayne is. And we know what he's insinuating, and he's talking about the check. And Lamont's like, stop, will you stop? We don't care about this guy's personal life. And he takes the check and he tries to put it away. And then the guy comes back in and he catches Lamont. He's all, can I help you? Like, why are you going through my stuff? You're going through my drawers. And your dad's doing everything fine. And he's like, no, we're good. We're sorry. He said, come on, son, let's get to moving this piano. And then the guy, and this is what's so funny. This is a gag I love when shows take a joke in the whole show, which is a joke. And this gag is always that no matter what Lamont does, he always gets stuck where he looks like he's bad. He brought his old man to work. That already is a strike against him. He's the one who's delaying, taking too long. That's another strike against him. He's going through the guy's drawers and like, what are you doing? You're the young one. You want to move it? You said you do the heavy lifting, and your dad's ready to work. And Fred's like, yeah. And he's like, and Fred's like, yeah, I've always been that way, which we know is full of crap. But he goes, if you got something to get done, get it done. Do it now, get it over with. And he's like, oh yes, it's too bad these young people don't get that. And he goes to tell him, and he's like, yeah, these young people, they don't get it. And he looks at him and he's like, do you have any kids? And he's all, no. And he says it so abrupt. He's like, no. Fred's all, I didn't. The way he says it too. He's all, I didn't think so. So we know, once again, what Fred's insinuating. He didn't think he'd have kids. And so he takes off, and first he's like, hey, you know what? Get started. And so he leaves. And when they leave, oh no, he gets the phone call. See, there's so many good, funny scenes here that actually, no matter how many times I see it, it's one big, just comedy gold piece where it's like, I can't even get the order right. But the phone rings and he picks it up, and that's when he gets it. He's all, oh, darling. And Fred's gonna have a field day. And then you see Fred behind telling Lamont, he's all doing the facial features, and he's all, he's speaking French. You can see the way he's speaking French, and he's saying some things in French, and then he's all, ha ha, like that. And then Fred does to Lamont, and Lamont's like, what, let's get to the piano. And he goes and he's like, he goes to the thing and he's like, oh, I'll take this in the other room. Because he's got a personal call and he doesn't want Fred and Lamont listening. Probably we know why. And he goes back there, and then Fred's trying to spy on it, and he's listening, trying to hear what's going on. And then Lamont's like, will you hang that up? And they hang it up, and he's like, I heard another guy on the other end. He said, I bet you it's Dwayne. And Lamont's like, come on, let's go. And he says, let's get to work. As he goes, I love this. Like I said, top five. There's so many funny. This is one of my favorites, is when he gets the cigarette. He's all, look, Lamont. He said, this is their cigarettes they smoke. And he sits there and he's like, he's like, oh, darling. And and he's puffing on it, and he lays down, and he's all doing the laugh and stuff. And he's all, ha ha. And when he sits there, he goes, excuse me, how long have you been doing manual labor? The way he does it too. And he's all, I wish I was here Saturday night with Dwayne and friends, hanging out, doing all this. It just shows the comic brilliance of Red Fox, to where how the writing is this is key writing, but the performance he puts on, like, I couldn't see, other actors can do it. I could not see Grady perform like this. Grady would have to have it written in a whole different way. Bubba would have to, I couldn't see Bubba perform at this. It's something about Red Fox's face, his comedic smile, his timing, everything about this is just bleeds. This is made for Red Fox. So we got a perfect match. That's why the show's so great. And this scene, this whole episode is one of probably like 15 to 20, to where if a fan just started watching it and just saw this episode, you would be like, my gosh, this is why the show was such a huge hit. I mean, there's other episodes that are not as good as this by far, but you still love it because you come to learn and love and get to know all these characters. But this is the one where these are the things that establish it, right? If you know how franchises like the 49ers, 5 Super Bowls, I know I'm way off topic, but that you go, that's a successful franchise. These episodes are championships when it comes to television in the series history, right? Mama's Baby, Papa's Maybe, Coffins for Sale, Card Sharps, all sorts of these episodes like that. BB King episode, those are the ones where you're just like, man, this is a championship of television history for the series. And so as he's doing that, man, I just love it. And then Fred gets up and Lamont's like, let's go. And as he goes, he's like, okay, let's go. And that's when he's like, Lamont's like, Fred's like, I ain't moving this. I can't move this thing. He's like, we're moving it. He said, it's giving us I think it's a stymie or whatever it's called. And he's like, the man is giving me a hernia. And it's so funny. And Lamont's like, I'll take care of it. We'll just get over there. And he's like, and then Lamont goes to bend over to get it. And Fred sneaks away and he gets on the phone again and he's listening. And then Lamont's like, oh, and then he takes it from him. And then that's when he's like, yeah, I think he's talking to Dwayne. And then that's when the guy comes back out. And now, once again, he comes out and Fred's like, hey, I'm sorry. He's like, do you need something? He's like, can we get something to drink? And then he starts telling him, oh, beer when it's near, brandy when it's handy. And he starts asking for all different drinks. And he's like, okay. And he's like, oh, milk. And he's like, I don't want to milk my bayonet wound. And he's like, I thought you were in the, as a parachute trooper. He's like, I thought you were in the infantry. I was a paratrooper. And when I fell in, I landed on one of the guys. Only Fred could fast think of a response like that, to where he gets caught in a mistake or lie. He could come out and say, oh, no, this is what I meant. I'm in this, and that's how this happened. So he goes to get him alcohol, and he comes back. And right before he comes back, Fred's like, look, or Lamont's, he's like, let's just go. And then he goes to move it. See, that's what I'm saying. Does he move it at that part? Or does he come back with the alcohol first? Yeah, he comes back with the alcohol first. No, he goes to lift it, and Fred goes, yeah, let me get under there. And he's going to help just get the rug out. And the guy sees him bent over, and it looks like Fred's going to try to lift the whole thing with his shoulders. He's like, oh, no, you can't do that. Don't let him do that to you. And he starts getting mad, and Lamont's like, this is not what he's like. No. He said, you shouldn't do that. You should not be doing any of this like that. Your father who gave so much for you and his country. And Fred's like, yeah, you're right. And he's letting him do it. And Lamont's so pissed. You can see the look on Lamont's face. And then he gives him the drink, and then he downs it. And he's like, ah. And then they start arguing. And he's like, you know what? I forget it. I don't think I want you to do the job. And he's like, no. He said, Fred's like, no, it's okay. We need the money. He's like, all right, I'm doing it for him, not for you. So poor Lamont, who just wants to get this thing out of there, and he's the captain of this team, and Fred is doing everything he can. It's one thing if Fred did all this and he got caught, and the guy was getting mad at Fred, but this guy's praising it, and then when he leaves, Lamont's just like, don't even say anything. Don't say another word. You've been doing it all afternoon here, and you just set me up. And so Lamont's like, forget it, I'll do it. And so he starts kicking it. Fred's like, yeah, kick it out there. Do that, yeah. And he's telling him how to do it like Lamont doesn't know. And you can see Lamont's lifting the piano, and they're moving it, and he pulls the rug out. And of course, he never walks out. Lamont, rightly so, says he's tired, sweating. And he's like, yeah, of course the guy doesn't walk out now. Why does he ever walk out when I do work? And then Fred's like, well, what do we do next? He's like, well, let me catch my breath. And then Fred sits down and he starts fanning himself too. I don't know why he's hot. He was just standing there. But Lamont's like, as soon as I catch my breath, we'll move it. And he's like, oh, we can? He's like, yeah, it's on wheels. And this is so good. The minute Fred touches it, he gets up. He's like, oh, yeah, this is easy. It is on wheels. And he's still struggling, right, as he's shoving it. The guy walks out. And he's just like, he's so mad. And Fred freezes. And you can see Lamont's face. He's just like, you got to be freaking kidding me, dude. Now you walk out. And that's when he's like, nope, he does it again. And rightfully so. He doesn't want to hear anything from Fred. He's like, you did it to me again. So they go, they work together, they get it out, they move the rugs. And as they're getting to the thing, he's like, and if you look at it, I think that Lamont's right. Honestly, they could have had it pulled up through the back giant window. You can see a window in the back. Maybe it was pulled up through there. My guess, looking at this piano, is they got it on its side, and with the legs, you stick it through and you rotate it like this, right? Once you get it out this way, you just got to pull it out like the Lamont, and you can. So it could, and they get it on the side, and as they start to go, they go to push it out, and then you hear them struggle. The guy gets another phone call, and he goes to get on the phone, and he's talking, and that's when he says his wife's name. He's like, oh, so-and-so, I don't know why she ever wanted it. She never even played, never learned anything more than chopsticks. So he's pissed about his wife, and he's glad she's gone, and he wants the piano out. And you can hear Fred and Lamont arguing, and then they go back to them, and the piano's halfway through, and they can't get it. And they're trying, and Fred's like, man, and he's like, just do it. He said, I can do this. He said, what do you want me to do next? We twisted it, we turned it. You want me to do the funky chicken? Like all these different dances. And Lamont's like, hey, we can get it through here. And then he tells him, the guy's like, well, you're taking way too long. And he gets a little impatient. Honestly, what has it been, 10 minutes? I mean, it's taken less time than the video we've watched up to this point. So he hasn't taken that long to move a big piano like this. And that's when and then Lamont's like, hey, don't worry, we'll get it. We'll have to take the legs off. And he's like, they don't come off. And he's like, well, how'd you get it? Then the police officer comes in. And he comes in and he's like, hey, you got to move your truck. And he's like, okay, just give me a second. Nope, you got to move the truck. You've been parked there way too long. We're going to get a ticket. And if you get a ticket, really, you either tow it or you give him a ticket and give him time. You're going to give him a ticket and tow it. But he says they're going to do both. And so Lamont's like, all right. So he can't move the piano. And the guy leaves. And then the guy's like, hey, where are you going? You get back here. I demand you do this. And that's the worst thing you do. You can wait a few more minutes, man. And he loses his cool. And when you start demanding, Lamont's already done. For the crap he had to go through with this guy. And all the hoops he's jumped through just to get to this stage. And his dad basically stabbing in the back every time. He's done. And Lamont says that. He's like, that you forget it. I'm not doing nothing. He's like, let's get out of here. I'm through with you and this piano. And Fred's like, all right, let's go. Fred didn't even want to do it. So that's when the guy's like, hey, come back. You can't do this. Pull it back in. And Fred's like, me with my bayonet wound. Me and my bayonet wound. He said, I can't do it. He's all, come back. I'm going to sue you. Samson and Son. And then Fred's like, no, it's, as he's walking out, it's Samson and Delilah. And then he goes, I'm Samson. And obviously Lamont's Delilah, Lamont's next to him, and he's doing this, and then he kind of freezes, and Lamont's just like, not having it. Not in the mood for that kind of crap. And then, so they go, okay, you know what? We got to go. What are we supposed to do? And he's like, we have to. And then that's when multiple Bible references. You can see this a lot throughout series history, not just from Esther, but Fred does a lot, even if it's false, right? When he says, remember, whoever, what's the one? Love thy neighbors. And Fred's like, oh, well, whoever wrote the Bible didn't live in this neighborhood. So we see other episodes where the Bible's referenced, but Fred's like, we're going to be like Moses when he parted the Red Sea. And he said, we're going to be like Moses. He said, no, we're going to be like the Red Sea and split. I'm right with you. So Lamont says, and they take off. And then at the end, we get down there where they're talking, they get off. And that's when he starts going, you know what, man, I still think that guy's fruity. And he goes, I think he was a Nazi. And Lamont's like, what do you mean a Nazi? He said, yeah, I think he was a Nazi. He said, a lot of those Germans. And and I think Hitler. Yeah, I think Hitler was a fruit. And he's like, why would you say that? And he said, when he goes, hi Hitler. And he does it like that. So good. So funny. Such a great written line and performance right there by Fred and Lamont. And then they realize they still have those stupid shoes on. And it's like, you're not, at this stage, no. You can't go back. You can't go back up there. And Fred's like, I just had my shoes rehealed. And he said, you know, we don't want to go up and deal with them. And he said, all right. He said, let's go. Lead the way. After you, Delilah. To Lamont. And that is the end of Piano Movers. Wow. Piano Movers. Great episode. I mean, I covered basically everything. We've already covered the top 5 funny. We got the summary. Let's get to fun facts. So on this is, like I said, one of the rare episodes. There's only a handful of one, like the NBC, that's with the Lena Horne. This one was another, there was, I think, a couple of them where they actually open with a live action scene. A lot of times you don't do that, okay? So that was something cool with this episode. Another fun fact, the cigarette, when Fred's actually doing the pretending he's smoking a cigarette, like I said, I point out any goofs or fun facts. This one was kind of a goof where you could see the boom mic shadow going across Fred as he's moving. So they kind of mess up in there. Not really a fun fact, but still a goof. Another one, this is, the man's name is never said, right? They never say his name. I wish they would have. It's weird that you wouldn't at least introduce yourself or say something. But his wife's name is Sylvia, because he says that on the phone. He's like, I never understood why Sylvia had the thing. So we know his wife's name was Sylvia. That would have been great if it was like Esther or something comical like that. This is one of the, this is something, how many times can you go through Sanford and Son history and think about an episode where the house was not shown? It's like, hey, yeah, I had to look that up. I forgot about that even. But there are so many episodes, and when there's 136, I didn't look up every single one. I just went off the top of my head. A couple that I can think. Comment below if you can think of any that I don't name that were episodes that were never shown the house. These are the ones I got. I got where the home was not shown. A Camping We Will Go. Remember that one? I remember that because they start out right at the campsite and it ends where they're leaving the campsite. So Camping We Will Go. Bank on This. That's the one where they start at the bank and then they finish at the bank, right, when there's a robbery. And the other one I thought it was Hawaii Part 2. Hawaii Part 1 opens at home, and I believe Hawaii Part 3 ends when they come home. But Hawaii Part 2, the Hawaiian Vacation, I believe is also another one where they never show the home. So I'm trying to think, what was another one? Comment below if you think of any. If there was one that I've missed. I thought there was one more for sure, but you know, that's another fun fact. That was pretty cool. And I believe that's it. Now, let's get to familiar faces. This one didn't have it only had 4 characters. So the other 2, both are familiar faces. The first one is Lester Fletcher. And that is the guy who plays the man in this one. Sylvia's husband, the guy who wants the piano move. He's been in Battlestar Galactica. He's been in something called Switch. This is ironic after Fred said that. Something called Hitler. Right? A lot of these, if I find the picture, you'll see it on the screen right now. Down to Earth. And he actually has another another role in Sanford and Son. I believe it was season 4, Tower Power. That's the one where Fred gets this big old junk thing where he tries to be an artist. He is in that one. So that's it. Lester Fletcher on there. And then Rick Hurst. Rick Hurst was the police officer. We know him. I know him just by seeing his face from Dukes of Hazzard. He was one of the deputies from Roscoe P. Coltrane's group. But he was on Dukes of Hazzard. One of the nice ones, right? Roscoe was a bad one. Steel Magnolia. Huge movie. In the Line of Fire. Another very big movie. and Earth Girls are easy. All those movies I've heard of. How many of those? I've seen, I think, In the Line of Fire. I never saw Steel Magnolias, and I never saw Earth Girls. But Dukes of Hazzard I saw as well. So those are the familiar faces. So that is it on Piano Movers. I hope you stayed the entire time. Thank you so much for everyone who watches, leaves nice comments, chats. And I was wondering, if you've stayed this long, let me know in the comments. Would you be interested in something to wear every Saturday, maybe twice a month on Saturday nights? I go live right here off screen. I will be watching an episode of Sanford and Son. I would tell you ahead of time, right? Like I would put the post maybe that week and say, hey, this Saturday night, we're watching this episode. Then you can watch it at home, and together we can interact and talk and chat as we, it's like we're watching an episode of Sanford and Son together, where it's just like Saturdays with Sanford, stream live to where I can see your comments. I'll comment exactly on what I'm watching and reacting. I just thought that would be a fun way where our community, especially the ones that are really tight, we can watch the show together. And I would do it a couple times a month. If you're interested in that and you stayed that long, comment below if you want me to. Hey, I don't care if it's 2, 3 of us, that we just get it going. That's something I would have a good time with, watching it. And then as we're both watching together, you could, because I can't actually put it on, and I can't even do the audio. I did that once on my my other channel, and it got copyright blocked. I couldn't even replay it. So that's why it would be something to where we would both personally watch it separate. So let me know what you guys think of that, and stay tuned for Fun Fact Friday. We are done with season 1. It is done, and it ended on probably the best possible episode I can think of. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Look for more trivia, quizzes, everything coming out through the weeks. Continue to like and subscribe. And if you ever want to look for me, Red G Fox, I'm on Twitter at Red G Fox. Give a follow, and I can comment easier than YouTube. We can just directly talk to each other. Have a great day. Talk to you guys later. Peace.